at a community organization that happens to serve disenfranchised people of color, or whatever the case may be. There's so many different ways in which the individual side of things can come into play. And so that's the first aspect, identifying one's ability to contribute to the cause. But also, we tend to see these things on a national scale, right? And what would it look like if we took that national energy and centralized it here in our community? Think about the protests and the rallies that we happened to see last year here in Indianapolis, that one of them was actually organized and headed by a Rebuff alumni. That's that momentum. That's where we bring and keep the momentum. Black Student Union this year has some really, really cool plans in terms of education and awareness and celebration. That's a really awesome opportunity for our non-Black students to get involved and to be in a space where, hey, you're not the center here, and that's okay, but this is a perfect atmosphere and opportunity for you to get a feel for the culture, to observe, to learn, maybe even to participate if it's something that you're comfortable in. But there's so many different ways that we can keep that momentum. But I think at the end of the day, it's an understanding that we all individually have something to contribute and being willing to contribute. Because there's a difference between being able to do the work and being willing to do the work, right? This work isn't always comfortable. Having conversations with your peers when you have to call someone out over something ugly that they said is not always comfortable, right? Speaking up in class when a comment is made that invalidates the humanity of a community, and you're that one person that's like, actually, it's difficult sometimes. But that willingness to put yourself in uncomfortable situations for the betterment of our community, for the betterment of our society.
No, I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's really interesting. And if I would for a second, I'd just like to, focus on myself and talk
Yes.
about me. As a white male in this community, I don't fit into a less privileged group. I'm part of the majority in a lot of situations that I'm in. I don't necessarily feel like I can approach some of these other communities because I don't share their race, their heritage, and their culture. And so, how can I be a part of this work without seemingly to like appropriate their culture or like to take what doesn't belong to me, even though I want to, step in with the good intentions? Sometimes I'm not sure how to take that first step a lot of ways.
And I imagine you're not the only person that has a question similar, right? But Ms. Doris, I don't really identify there, and I don't want to step on toes, or I don't want to say the wrong thing, or what do I do, right? The easiest thing that you can do, for starters, attend a meeting. We have underrepresented student organization meetings that are open. Black Student Union, Asian Student Union, Mi Familia, Muslim Student Union, Jewish Student Union, Gender Sexuality Alliance, all which are open organization meetings that you can come and hang out and learn. And by one, being present at those types of organization meetings, you're signaling to your peers, I want to learn. I would like to be a part. I'm an ally. Any of those things, your peers see you in this specific space, and slowly but surely, depending on what friends you have or who's kind of already in that organization, it doesn't take very much for the welcome to be there. And we want the welcome to be there. So pop up to a student meeting is one of the first things. Also, look in your friend group. Think about your friends. What do your friends look like? What backgrounds do they come from? What are their experiences? And if you happen to see that your friend group is homogeneous, it's all the same, consistent across the board, maybe just consider making some friends that don't look like you, that come from different backgrounds as you, because you never know what you can learn simply by making friends and listening to said friends.
Yeah.
And so I'll go with that as a starter.
I think that's a great place to start from. And thinking about the different affinity groups that we have here at Brebeuf, these are made possible because we have students that make up so many different walks of life.
Mhm.
And so all of these different students come together to form this wonderful community that we have here. But sometimes communities, sometimes families don't always get along. And sometimes there's tension between groups or
Yes.
between individuals. And so I'm curious as to how Brebeuf, moving forward, plans to address issues of race and religion and sexuality and gender harassment.
Well, at the end of this diversity dialogue, you all can say that Mr. G held nothing back today. Okay. He hit me with the hard ones, but the good ones. So, we soft launched our anonymous alerting portal a couple weeks ago. And basically, this was a system that's been in the works for about 6 to 8 months now. There was a whole process to make it possible. But basically, our anonymous alerting portal is an opportunity. It's not an opportunity. It's a resource, and it provides some accountability, some intercommunal accountability. We understand that sometimes you see something and you don't know what to say in the moment, or you don't know what to say in the moment. Sometimes it's fear, whatever the case may be. We don't always speak up. Or we happen to be on the receiving end of an ugly statement or action or human invalidation. And so this is a resource in which you can anonymously alert us to instances of racism, discrimination, harassment, and bullying here at Brebeuf. And so what happens is you submit that information on the portal, and you can choose to remain anonymous or not remain anonymous. We do let you know if you choose to remain anonymous. We can't guarantee that you get any follow-up as to what was actually done or what investigation took place, because we don't know who you are. If you choose to leave your actual information with us, we do a follow-up kind of communication. But basically, every anonymous alert that we get, there's a formal investigation. And so we bring in parties involved. We review our cameras. We collect all of the evidence that may be needed to affirm or deny whatever it is that was presented to us. And then there are, I hate the word like punishment, reprimand. There are consequences that are consistent with the gravity of the infraction that was done. Yeah, that was done. And so far, because it was a soft launch for the first couple of weeks, kind of gauging, okay, what are we getting? What do we need to edit? And so Mike, Mr. Higginbotham, and I have kind of gone back and forth in terms of the process of things and how it comes in. But there's an actual investigation process. There are consequences that align with the severity of the infraction. And in addition to punishment, reprimand, there's also an educational aspect to these instances, because we understand that it's one thing to just punish a student. You all are in high school. You're still learning and growing, and this is a perfect opportunity to use some of these ugly interactions as learning opportunities. And so there's an actual educational, there's an assignment, and there's a project that is assigned to students based on what it is that they happen to be in the middle of.
I love that. No, I love that. That's really great. And I think it's so important to make sure that like you've been saying, this work is all of our work. And so
Yes.
we are two people, but we need your help to make sure that this community is on the path to improving, to always doing the right thing. And so we have about 20 minutes left. So I do want to change gears a little bit here and
talk
open
about
it up to our community. And so if you have any questions for Ms. Storrs or myself, we would love to hear them. You're welcome to come up here and say them to the microphone. Otherwise, you can say them from your chair and we'll repeat them so that everyone can hear. But if you would like to ask Ms. Storrs anything about her first year here or diversity, equity, inclusion at Brebeuf specifically, plans for the future, etc., we would love to hear from you and your thoughts on this subject.
Yeah.
If you have questions too, not particularly focus on what we addressed here, but you think fits within the realm of this diversity dialogue, we welcome those questions as well. So we'll allow a moment of uncomfortable silence to sit amongst you and settle throughout while we wait for brave souls to step up with those questions. So
Preguntas.
This
That's
is-
questions in Spanish.
Mr. Abdel.
Yeah, absolutely. Question. And so I'm going to repeat the question for those viewing at home. The question was, we have different underrepresented student organizations that we're doing some really great work with, but is there a plan to address intersectionality, the intersection of those different student identities? And first, great question. So intersectionality is actually a concept that last year became a conversation amongst some of our student organizations. And it took us a little bit. We had to get the definition of intersectionality right here in this specific setting. But intersectionality being an accounting for the way in which our different identities do just that. They intersect, right? We are not all just one specific identity. I am Black. I am a woman. I am heterosexual. I am a Christian. And each of those different identities comes with a different experience. And so intersectionality accounts for those experiences together. How does the experience change from me being a woman to me being a Black woman? How does those experiences change from me being an able-bodied Black woman versus, and so the concept of intersectionality is a conversation that arose last year. And in understanding more what exactly that meant, this year our minority student leaders, our underrepresented student leaders, actually have gotten together and are working to create collaboration amongst themselves to account for the intersectionality within them. And so one of the collaborations that I'm really excited to see is our underrepresented ethnic student groups and our Gender Sexuality Alliance, because the intersection of gender expression and sexual orientation, but also race and ethnicity, is one that I don't think we account for a lot in this space, at least. And so looking at the intersection there, and that's like a tip of the iceberg in terms of what that could potentially look like. So short answer, it's in the works. And there's so much room for it to grow and evolve. But yes, it's something that we have begun talking about and figuring out how to make it present here. So thank you, Mr. Abdel. And welcome, Mr. Abdel, one of our new social studies teachers. Any other questions? Because if not, oh, well, hello.
This question may or may not have an answer, and I'm okay with that.
Okay.
As I've journeyed through life as an African-American woman with 4 African-American daughters, I've had the opportunity to encounter those that don't recognize that they need to be at the table. And so again, you said earlier that there are always 2 sides to every situation. So I love what you're doing, and you're getting it out, and you can see that the students here are also intrigued and wanting to get on board. But how do you reach those that still have the blinders on and don't think they need to be at the table, to be part of the conversation?
That's a great question. And let me see, does that need to be repeated for the mic?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So the question coming from Mom, Miss Tisha Smith over here, is how do we work to engage the folks whose blinders are on and who don't see themselves as someone who needs to be engaged in the work, correct? Did I reword that correctly? Okay. So have you met me? Have y'all met me? I build relationships even when you don't want to have a relationship with me. And that has been my approach to largely our students who will walk past my office and they look in and they don't say anything, or they'll see me in the halls and they'll see the students surrounding me. And so their eyes kind of glaze over, but there's never an acknowledgement. Or when I'm on prefect duty in the mornings and I'm like, good morning. And they're just like, good morning. I kill them with kindness. I literally find ways to meet students exactly where they are so that they can actually understand me. I take my DEI hat off, my Director of Equity and Inclusion hat off, and I put my Miss Stores as an educator hat on. Miss Stores as the cool auntie, Miss Stores as the big sister. I put that hat on. I meet students where they are, and I build relationships with them that have nothing to do with equity and inclusion. And then once those relationships are established, I slowly but surely just kind of, reel them in. And before they know it, they're engaged. And they're like, oh, wow, this is actually kind of cool. I can do this. Yes, you can absolutely do that. In terms of faculty and staff, very similar. And I'm a lot for a lot of people. I don't drink coffee. My energy is just organic. And like toxic positivity sometimes, I think, is a thing for me. But with our faculty and staff, it is similarly meeting them where they are and empowering them in their own roles, right? I don't want to step on any toes. I don't want to tell you what you should and shouldn't be doing. I want to help you identify ways in which you can enhance the atmosphere of your classroom. And I don't know what your classroom looks like because I'm not in your classroom every day. Only you know that. And so I empower our faculty and staff with resources, with tools, with activities, with excitement, and then just me. I'm just me. And I know that's not a cliche. I'm just me. And I love what I do. And when I love what I do and I have these conversations and people see that I love what I do and they see that it's personal, it makes it clearer to those who would have previously just disregarded it, that this is not Kayla coming in. This is not Miss Doris coming in and saying, oh, well, we're doing a terrible job. We need to change all this stuff. And no, we're actually doing a great job, but we can always get better. And at the end of the day, I just want this place to be a better place for everyone. Did that answer your question? Awesome. Of course. Wow.
I know. That was a great question and a great answer. And I think too, yes, thank you. And I think too, when I think about you being Miss Stores and being Kayla, one of the things that you bring is this passion for education. And you've opened up opportunities for the faculty and staff here already in your 1 year here that we haven't had before, and just providing us with that education. So we may not even realize, a lot of times, I think that some people can just exist in a world of ignorance. And while that may be blissful, we need them to get on board with what's going on right here. And so by providing education for them and to them, we realize that this table that we're trying to bring people to, when we bring someone else to the table, it doesn't kick someone else out of their seat. This table's big enough for everyone. And so by educating people and realizing that we can all come together, that we all, whether we want to or not, are part of this work, I think is super important. And you mentioned education earlier when talking about the anonymous alerting portal, how education is part of that process of reconciliation, of healing. Without it, then we just continue to do those things that got us in trouble in the first place. We never learn. And so I think as adults, continuing to learn and providing opportunities for us to learn and for students to learn so that they grow up and are good people as well, I think is one of the things that you brought to Burbuff that we are so grateful for.
It reminds me of, have you all ever seen a flash mob? Or like you've seen like videos of a flash mob and they usually start with like one person. And actually, have you seen that? There's a video of a guy at a beach in this, or like in an open field, you know what I'm talking about? And like he stands up and he's randomly dancing by himself and he looks crazy. Folks are like, who is this random guy on a hill just dancing? And someone else sees that he looks kind of silly by himself. So they hop up and they join him, silly dancing. So now there's two of them. And folks are looking around like, who are these two people out here looking silly, just randomly dancing? And then a couple more people join. And then a couple more people join. And before you know it, there's a whole group of people randomly dancing on this hill and they are enjoying themselves. And it just looks so fun. And it like went viral. And you're just like, it started with one person that was willing to stand up and look weird. And it led to this like flash mob sort of thing that the more people that were there, the more exciting it was. And the more you were just like, I want to be a part of it. It started, oh my gosh, like who is this weird guy? At the end, it was if you weren't dancing, you were weird. Like, really? You're going to be that person to sit back and like not engage in these things with us? I think of DEI work very similar. And that to begin with, when it's new, folks are going to look at you weird. Some of these things are buzzwords. When folks hear words like inclusion or implicit bias or some of these buzzwords, folks automatically shut their mind off and they're like, nope, I'm good. But it takes one person to stand up and do the weird thing or to be uncomfortable. And folks kind of start looking and they're like, what are you doing? And then someone else sees the value in it and they're like, I want to join you. And now we've got two people that are engaged in the work, uncomfortable, and folks are like, what are y'all doing? Then a couple more folks join and a couple more folks join, and ultimately it becomes the flip side of what it started out as. It becomes, if you're not actively engaged in the work, what are you doing? Because this is everyone's job. That's how I think of DEI work.
Absolutely.
A flash mob. Yeah.
We have time for a few more questions if anybody has any for us. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. Mhm. 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 Yeah. Mhm. Okay. Absolutely. Do I need to repeat that? Okay, so the question for our viewers is, how do we go about referring to people in a way that doesn't particularly like alienate a specific aspect of their identity, whether that be like pronouns or like race, ethnicity? Is that what I'm understanding? Okay, so it genuinely is as simple as asking. And it sounds weird, but it may be when it comes to pronouns, I'll lead with my pronouns. I didn't today and I'm trying to get better on it. My name is Miss Doris. My pronouns are she, her, hers. When I do that, when you do that, it signals to the other person that you are open and willing to address them by whatever pronoun that they prefer if their pronoun doesn't match their presentation. In terms of race and ethnicity, how do you mind if I ask how you identify? I just want to make sure that I identify you correctly. I get this question all the time. Kayla, do you prefer Black or African American? I'm blackity black black. For me, African American is a bit too formal, but that's not the case for everyone. Other folks will tell you, I prefer African American. I don't mind if you call me African American. I'm going to refer to myself as Black, you know. And so a simple ask, especially when it's sincere, folks will see and understand that, like, this is not her or them or they attempting to ostracize or alienate me. This is someone who genuinely wants to ensure that they are referring to me based on how I would like to be referred to. Does that answer your question? Awesome. Thank you. I think you're going to be our last question, Javon? Yeah. Okay, Javon. Do you need to repeat that for the cameras? I'm going to repeat that for the questions just to be safe, because that's a very valid question. So, no, you don't. I'll repeat it. If you submit an anonymous alert and that alert ends up being false, do you get in trouble? Yes, you get in trouble. As I was very, very clear with you all at your class meetings, do not find yourself trying to put false information in that anonymous alerting portal, because the consequences could be dire, not only for yourself, but for the person who ends up falsely accused. And you are at a pivotal point in your high school careers that you just don't need it. So unless it's something that is genuine, that you think absolutely needs to be addressed, don't put it in there. I have some students that they don't want to put it in the portal, but they'll come to me. Hey, Ms. Doors, I need to tell you something. And that's fine also. But no, do not put false information. Do not put false information in that portal. Por favor, no pongan información incorrecta en nuestro portal. Okay? Okay. Thank you. And it looks like with that, follow up with me afterward, Javon. We got 1 minute. Follow up with me afterward. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us for this diversity dialogue. Thank you, Mr. G, for joining us, and you have a great rest of your afternoon. There is a Mi Familia meeting, second PRT upstairs in room 273. A Mi Familia meeting in room 273.